All right, here we go. Finals review day 2. Remember, this is for your information to help you work along with your packets. If you have any questions, you can always raise your hand and ask me. Okay, so here we go. Triangle congruence. So on the side here, what I'd like you guys to do is write down those triangle congruence conditions. And let's write that down here. So we got our congruence conditions. And some of you may remember some of these. We had side, 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 angle, angle, side, angle, 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 side, or side, angle, angle. It's the same thing. And hypotenuse leg. So those are congruence conditions. So when they say, consider the triangles to the right, state the theorem or postulate, it's talking about these conditions over here. So this is the same as this, which are used to prove the triangles are congruent. So we are looking for the minimal amount of information. We need to say that two triangles are congruent. Can we say that all the sides are congruent, the sides and angles, and so on? So we can use one of these to determine if our triangle is congruent. So they gave us some information here. They gave us one of the sides. They said that this side, AB, is congruent to DE. Then they said CB is congruent to FE. And notice I put 2 tick marks so I know that there are different lengths and they correspond to a different side of the second triangle. And then lastly, it says angle B, and this is this angle right here, is congruent to angle E. Well, notice if I write on the top here, I have a side, I have an angle, and I have a side. And then a corresponding side, angle, and side. So where's my congruence condition? It's side, angle, side. And I'll put that down here. Side, angle, side. Now I can say for certain that those two triangles are congruent given the information. So that's what it's asking you to do on this first page. Now towards the bottom, we're asking for a different set of information. We're saying determine whether the pairs of triangles are congruent. If so, write the congruence statement with the condition. So we know that our congruence conditions are these right here. Here's our congruence conditions. We also need to write that congruence statement. It says that one triangle is congruent to the other. So let's do our trick that we did up here. And I'm going to do some different colors here. So I have AB. Whoops, let's move this back up here. I have that this side is congruent to this side. Why? Because they're the same length. That's easy to see. Then I also see that this side is 7.5 and so is this one. So that is also easy to see. And then we have the last side. Well, that's also the same lengths. So what do I have? I have a side corresponding to this side, a side corresponding to this side, and a side corresponding to this side. So my congruence condition is side, side, side. Now I got to write the congruence statement. So I'm going to say that triangle, I'll start with A, B, C. Remember, I can start with any 3 letters I want, but the next 3 letters have to correspond. Is congruent to, well, if this A here corresponds with F, D corresponds with B, and E corresponds with C. Now, if you can't see that right off the bat, use that one fantastic stuff called patty paper to match up the vertices. So there's my congruence condition. There's my congruence statement. All right, let's do the next one together. And let's use my green here. So I know this angle, it says, is congruent to this angle. So B is congruent to E. Let's see. Angle C is congruent to angle C. That's pretty easy to see there too. And then side DC is congruent to BC. Now, if I get out that patty paper and I trace this triangle. We'll call it CBA. And I flip it over here. I notice that this side corresponds to this side, but the angles don't correspond. They're on opposite sides of the triangle. Now, because of that, I cannot say that these are congruent. So are they congruent? I can't say. So I'm just going to say not congruent for this at this time. Because I need, again, at least 3 pieces of information, except for on a hypotenuse leg. I need at least 3 pieces of information. All right, so that's what we'll be doing with the next triangles. The last one brings back our old favorites, the flowcharts. I don't have some good circles to use. So I'm just going to draw my circles here. I have 3 I'm going to draw. Because remember, I need 3 pieces of information to show that 2 triangles are congruent. Now I notice that AB is congruent to BC. So I'm going to write that in my first circle here. Side AB is congruent to BC. And why do I know that? Well, it's given on my diagram. Now look at this. Angle B is congruent to angle B. So I'm going to write that on here. Angle B is congruent to angle B. And why do I know? How do I know that? It's given. And those are B's, just so you know. Lastly, green, I have this line right here. If I was to take these 2 triangles apart and put them back together, they would actually line up perfectly. So we know that BD is congruent to BD. And how do I know that? Because it's the reflexive property. Now, you may not remember that property. I don't know if we're going to have that on the final exam, but if you know reflexive property, you should be okay. All right, so what do I have here? I have a side, I have an angle, and I have a side. Well, that's enough information to say that 2 triangles are congruent. So I'm going to point my little arrows down here and give my congruent statement. Triangle A, B, D is congruent to triangle. This is a congruency symbol. Well, wow. I'm not drawing very well with my pen. Now, if it's ABD, it's got to be CBD. Now we're going to line up those vertices. And how do I know that? Side, angle, side. So that's what you're going to do for this one over here, is you're going to do a flow chart. All right. Have fun with day 2. We'll move on to day 3 tomorrow.